Hello, everybody. It's so exciting to have many of you online in many different time zones and different parts of the world, and many more of you who I know will be watching and listening to this when you can get at the right time in your life. I looked back the other day at the webinar we did 2 years ago. We did a webinar series called On the Bit. At that point in time, all we could do was show slides. It had some great content, I think, but my voice wasn't terribly clear. And what we can do now technologically 2 years on is just fantastic. And having so many of you signed up is fantastic as well. So welcome. And my aim through these 5 webinars is to give you some really practical ways of, first of all, understanding what On the Bit really means and figuring out how to get there in ways that will change your riding, that I trust when we change the rider on top, we begin to change the horse. So my whole teaching career has been built on that basis, that if I can change what the rider does on top, I can change what the horse does underneath, because the rider cannot not influence. The horse is reading our body the whole time in terms of how much we support our body weight or sit like a sack of potatoes, how much we wiggle and jiggle, how much we shove, how much we pull, what our asymmetry is doing. He cannot not notice those things. And we're influencing in ways far beyond the ways that most people realize they're influencing. So some of you will have done the survey that we put on Facebook a while ago, and when we asked people a few questions about On the Bit, and answers came back to kind of what is it, you know, to a lot of people saying, well, it's about the horse's head being vertical and it's about him looking neat and smart and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that once upon a time too. And what I'm going to be proposing to you is that On the Bit, or what I prefer to call the seeking reflexes, is a much more whole body expression of that horse's beingness and not just a head thing. So what is On the Bit not? It's not just a head thing. It's not just about kicking and fiddling or soaring or pulling or playing with your fingers. If it was as easy as that, I think a lot of people would be able to do it compared to the people that actually don't do very well. And the problem is that horses that get the kick the back and play with the front syndrome tend to end up with a vertical nose and a rather short neck. In fact, they do the horse version of looking a bit like this. So another thing that On the Bit isn't for an awful lot of people is what I would call a bite-sized chunk. And I think this is one of where our really big problems comes in that for elite riders who kind of are the guardians, if you like, of what is said in the horse world and the dressage world, and kind of set the tone from on high, On the Bit, of course, is a bite-sized chunk. They get on the horse, they just organize themselves, pick up the reins, and most of the time there is the horse in carriage. And that is not true for most riders. We need a roadmap to get you from your starting point to a place that is at least closer to your horse on the bit. And of course, we have the gross problems with that and also the subtle problems. And looking at top level riders in international competition, you don't always see the perfect, beautiful picture of a horse that we really hope we can see. So the aim of these videos is not just to show you people doing this really well, or at least close to perfectly. The aim is to try and find out a roadmap. And one of the trickiest things in this, however good a job we do here with our amazing technical stuff and in what we show you with our riders and the words I say, none of that diagnoses your starting point. And if you want to get to Paris, you have to know, are you starting from London? Are you starting from Berlin? Are you starting from Stockholm? Is it Sydney, Australia? Is it Dubai or Oklahoma, where I know some of you are at the moment? So knowing your starting point is vital before you begin your journey. And hopefully what we will begin to do is diagnose some starting points and begin to give you some suggestions. And of course, we have your starting point and your horse's starting point. So, not yet. Here's an important question for everybody, and I would really like you to answer this honestly, and that probably really means take the numbers that come to you off the top of your head. So I'm going to say, if we took 100% of your attention and we divided it into 2 parts, what percentage of your attention would be on the reins, the contact, the horse's head position, what his neck looks like in front of you, whether you think his nose is vertical, and what percentage of your attention would be on your torso, your backside, your thighs, the feel of his back underneath you, how you sense the interface between your body and his, and how he feels under your butt between your thighs. So we're making two numbers here that add up to 100%. And actually, if any of you are willing to do a quick type in of those numbers, so we're kind of doing a focus on the head versus focus on the middle of you and the middle of him numbers. If anybody is willing to type in two numbers, I could get them relayed to me. But I can tell you that having asked this question to many riders over many years, many people are going to say they've got 80% of their attention on the rein contact, the position of the horse's head, what his neck looks like, and all that, and maybe 20% of their attention on the rest of their body. Okay, so we've got 50-50s, we've got 80-20s, we've got 70-30s. All right, and 270 people trying to type this in, says Peter. So what I'm going to say to you is the big challenge that faces you is really getting 80% of your attention on your middle, your core, your thighs, the feel of the horse's back underneath you, and no more than 20% of your attention on what's happening with the reins and the head, and whether the nose is vertical and how the neck looks. And that is not what happens to most people. And once upon a time, that wasn't my deal either, because I'm not going to go into my whole story, but just briefly, when I was in my early 20s and working for my BHS exams, and I was eventing at that point, and I really wanted to be good, you know, I wanted to be good. I wanted to look good on a horse. I wanted my horses to go out and do well. I wanted to pass my exams. I wanted to be good. And I spent all my time trying to be good. And it's like saying I spent all my time trying to be in Paris. And I actually ended up with a very good teacher who was a very good rider, but not a terribly good teacher. He really showed me amazing things about what a skilled rider can do with a horse that were totally beyond anything I'd experienced at that point, but he couldn't teach me how to do it. And I ended up feeling like I was bashing my head against a brick wall. And in my late 20s, I gave up riding, sold my horse. It broke my heart. It was the end of my dream. But, you know, I just couldn't handle all the angst any longer. And I didn't ride for about 6 months. And when I got back on a horse again, it was different, because I didn't care anymore how good, bad, or ugly I was. I was just up there noticing. I wasn't trying to be anywhere else. I was noticing the what's happening now. And I started noticing things like, oh, my right seat bone's heavier than my left, and I always tend to pull in the right rein, and how might those be related? And the work that I do now, nearly 40 years on, frighteningly, is built on those initial discoveries that have become an exploration over all of these years, that have gone deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers of the onion of the rider-horse interaction. And, you know, what I could say is, before I gave up, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be good. I thought I had to teach my horse to come on the bit. After I gave up and I didn't care any longer, I started noticing what was. And the other thing that happened was I started to listen to the horse. And it became clear to me that it wasn't about teaching the horse human language. It was about, as a human, beginning to learn horse language and discover, what is the horse telling me about what I'm doing? Oh, I did something right. What did I just do? He just got better. I felt a difference. Oh, I've blown it. It's all gone wrong. What just happened? And the horses became my feedback mechanism and my teachers. And my hope for you through this webinar is that rather than wanting to get right, you're going to get to where your horses can become your feedback mechanism and your teachers. And that, instead of longing to arrive, you develop the skills of noticing, of being in the moment, of being in process, of putting 2 and 2 together. So you begin to work out what works. So we're teaching a series of body patterns, and we're teaching a way of processing and noticing. So we might just have a little look at our riders, actually, just to break things up a little bit here. let's start maybe with Millie. So some of you will know Millie if you've been on Peter's previous webinars and some of mine too. So Demelza, I'm going to just head you down the other end for a minute. And Millie, you're going to come on a circle round us. And I want you to go more round-backed. So Millie was looking a bit round-backed and down heavy when I looked at her earlier. So I thought she might be able to demonstrate this. So this is a very typical scenario of the rider. Her front is shorter than her back. She lands in the saddle a bit heavy. You could land a bit heavier. Go and exaggerate for us. The more she lands heavy, the more she's going to tend to squash her pony. And her pony's kind of going, yeah, I'm getting lazier as we go. Hasn't put her nose up in the air, which she might have done. Can you squash her more? That's it. And this is behind the balance point and being a little bit scary. And we're losing energy by the ton here. All right, let's see how good you can get yourself. So can you get where you're lighter? Keep foot light. Ping a little more. Okay, and right now I'm just showing you changes that you're going to learn more through this course. Foot light, weight in your thigh. Okay, and can you have her go a little more as you do that? So your thrust, your bear down, making her thrust, her bear down. Okay, all right, good job. You walk. Demelza, just come around us a moment here. So Demelza, some of you have met as well in Peter's webinars, and she and I spent really no more than half an hour together before the webinar started. And actually, Demelza, are you up for going back to what you were doing as best you can? So this is the opposite starting point to Millie. What we have here with Demelza is her as a hollow-backed rider rather than a round-backed rider. So you can see that her back makes a hollow, that her front is longer than her back, and she's not stretching her legs down quite as much as she were, but she looks like some, oh yeah, well done. That's a good stretch down. So she looks like the many riders who've been taught to grow up and grow down. Grow tall and stretch your leg down. All right, now let's see if you can do a change here. So can you do chest down? That's it. Remember the extra big push on the left side of your butt. Good. Left knee up, left thigh snug, left foot light. Right, that's it. So now she's actually shortened herself somewhat and squished herself with her chest more down and her knee more up, and her angles making her much more like a martial artist. And your sense when you did that was immediately you could begin to feel a bit of change in him. Yeah, keep weight in your thigh, be careful with your foot. All right, so you come back to walk 2, and Millie, I want you to come and halt across in front of the camera here. And I have a chestnut mare here who's normally not the best kind of horse to do this with, but I want to show you something with her. Okay, so we need you dead sideways on, which I think you are here. Is that good? Have we got horse in the frame? Pop your stick down her shoulder. And I'm not sure what response I'm going to get from doing this, but let's just see. Kind of, sort of, but not a very happy little camper. So what I'm doing here is a belly lift on her. And what I'm getting is a rather ooh response from her tummy muscles. But did you feel her back change? Let's come this way because we're getting rather out of camera. I'm going to do it from this side. Now, if any of you do this with your horse at home, it comes with a health warning. It's a good thing to do when you're grooming. Obviously, it takes 2 people if you're riding. And if you do this, you need to have a very definite eye on the horse's hind leg, because some horses may well respond in a okay. So we get not a lot of response from her from a belly lift, but let's try this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just pull on the saddle pad. Do you feel any change when I do that? The saddle goes forward, the back comes up. So I don't know if you can see this in camera, that if I pull on the saddle pad, I may actually be pulling slightly where you can feel her back come up. Yeah, where her back changes a little bit under here. All right, you walk on. Demelza, let's come and do the same with your guy. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to reach to do pull on the saddle pad. don't come too close. I think you should be about here. Good boy. Yeah. You put your stick just down his shoulder. And let's just see how we do here. Good man. Okay, so yeah, so some change from him there. You could feel that, yeah? Stay hollow, so don't you grow tall. Or, sorry, or rather, don't grow hollow. Stay short, that was what I meant. Okay, so there is a response from him here, yeah? So you can see, I hope, that if I do that with his tummy, his back lifts. Once his back lifts, his head and neck reaches into the rein, and that happens automatically. If his back hollows, he disappears down here, his ears come back towards the rider's chin. So this is where really as a rider, the deal is, can you influence the shape of the horse's back? Not, can you make his head and neck go into a certain place? Because the head and neck will largely take care of themselves. Oh, good boy, that was a really good one. I hope that was clear. I'm gonna go to the other side. So he's kind of responding better. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. So that actually was a very good response, and at risk of losing his generosity, I'm going to do one more where I'm really going to duck. So hopefully you can see. There you go. All right, good. Walk on. All right, now we're going to do an exercise in which you're going to pretend to be a horse. So what I would like you to do here is stand, and as best you can, bend forward at your hips so you're making your back flat. And put your hand above your knees, like this. So your knees are the horse's stifles. Your seat bones are here. His are at each side of his tail. His thigh bones are within his butt, where yours are external, as it were. And your hands are here to remind you that that is the case. And as you're here, you're going to hollow your back as best you can and look up. Now, this is not a comfortable position. And if it's crippling you, maybe I'll let you off. But if you can do this, it's really worth it. And in this position, with your head up and your back hollow, you're going to try and walk. And it kind of works like this. And I'm sure, just like I don't look very wonderful here, you don't feel very wonderful while you're doing it. So let's suppose you're the horse, you're not doing very well, your rider's getting fed up with you, and she puts on the draw reins. So at this point in time, your back is hollow and your nose is down. Now this means for a horse that he's in a contortion. And as you walk in this contortion, your face is definitely not better, and it just might be worse. Okay? And you know, you could beat that horse black and blue, and he couldn't take longer steps. I'm sure you can feel this in your own body. Your hind legs are very restricted, and whatever anybody did to you, you could not take longer steps. Okay, so here comes the next version. This time, round your back. Let the back of your neck here lengthen. Let yourself be looking down at the floor, and now walk. And suddenly, your knees equal stifles work. Suddenly, it is possible to take a much bigger step, right? So what that means is, when the horse's back comes up, the hind legs can step more underneath his body. If his back is hollow, his ability to move his hind legs is really limited. If his back is hollow, his neck will hollow at the same time. This happens to people. Hollow your back here, and you hollow your neck here. Fill out your back more here, and your chin comes down. So humans have the same tendency to go that way or that way as horses do. And it's just how bodies work. And if we want bodies to work well and in harmony and without angst, we have to cooperate, basically, with the laws of nature. Oh, okay, so we got to redo. But you followed Demelza? Okay, so we're redoing this. So, Demelza, you head down that end. Okay, so Millie, be really round. Yes. Okay. So our cameraman didn't take the hint here and follow the horse when we had horses going around here. So we're just going to redo our horse bit here. So Millie, I want you to really land heavy and be round backed. So as you look at Millie, I think it's pretty clear her front is shorter than her back and her shoulders are rounding and her head is really forward. And Millie, I want you to land in the saddle even heavier. Yeah. So what's happening here is she's getting a very tiny little rise and a gradually heavier landing. And she gets really heavy. We might even find that the pony starts to wind down and begin to kind of run out of petrol and go, how the heck do I trot with this human? Okay. And you just ended up on the wrong diagonal. All right. Whoop, there you go. All right. So let's get you more right again. So can you elongate your front a little? Bigger thrust. Foot more light. More weight in your thigh. That's it. You may need to kick a little bit, but we've got loads more energy here now. That's it. And this pony at this point in time doesn't come up through her back as well as she could. And through me doing the belly lift, we kind of could tell that that's an issue with her body, right? So for her, that's a bit of an alien place to come up in a more lifted in her back, short in her tummy, filled into her crest kind of a way. But go soggy again, Millie. Go soggy, go round back, go heavy. You can see how Millie changes here and the pony starts to lose some energy. And this is all going to be a significant number of folks watching this will be in that end of the spectrum. And the way the rider's weight comes down into the saddle on the horse's back is a big part of what will tend to keep the horse squashed in the middle. Okay, Millie, thank you. Demelza, let's go again. Okay, so Demelza and I spent a little time together, as I said before the session, and she's gone back to her old way of doing it here. And she has worked very hard over the years to grow up tall and stretch her leg down and stick her chest out like she's been told. And she's demonstrating the extreme of this. And whilst a fair number of you watching will be round-backed, probably more of you guys will be hollow-backed doing what Demelza's doing now. So Demelza, let's see if you can change it. And go collarbone forward, chest down, waistband back, guts in the bowl, and then foot light, weight in your thigh. Can you get your left thigh to match your right thigh? So remember, you're trying to get an A-frame and to get hold of him a little bit more between that A-frame. Okay, and big thrust on your left butt, left thigh. That's it, you got it. That's right. With a tad more of an incline forward. And, you know, one of the ways I talk about it when the rider's getting her biomechanics really good is that it's more of a martial arts posture. Demelza now looks like she's got a shorter, more box-like, organized torso, like a martial artist. And that's where strength and power comes from. Maybe go back to the other way again. So the grow tall, stretch down version looks like her horse fades in energy a little bit as it does that. How does he feel different? He fades. You can feel him fade. Yeah. And now regroup to being short and box-like and foot light and weight in your thighs. Bigger thrust. That's it. That's it. Tad more of an incline forward. Just drop your chest a little. You got it. That place. All right. And let's walk. So this right now is not me giving you the roadmap. We will go into this more in how to organize your body to get to that place. But really what I'm saying to you is you may be a round-backed rider. Round-backed riders put too much weight in their bum. They land heavy. They tend to squash the horse in the middle. The more they squash the horse in the middle, the more he's in this position, the more his hind legs don't easily come under his body, the less power the rider easily has on the whole. And the hollowback riders are the people who've desperately tried to grow up tall and stretch their leg down, and in doing that lose a whole load of power that they would have on a more martial arts box-like torso. So we're trying to get you to this point where you can be like a martial artist on the horse, and we just move your hands from here to here, and you're a rider. So we need to get you to where the horse's body underneath you can make the change from here to here. Here's another little demonstration of this that's worth doing in your body. Hollow your back and grab one knee. Okay, and you'll be able to get your knee as close as you can or can't to your chest. And now flatten your back more and feel what happens to your knee. So as soon as I flatten my back, I can bring my knee way, way closer to my chest. And here, I really can't. That's the limit of where I can bring my thigh. I also, interestingly, can't balance as well. I was way more wobbly the other time round. So here's a good way to think about it. I like to talk about the spirals of ease and tension. So in the spiral of tension, let's say your horse is pushing back at you. His back is hollow. Maybe he's lazy, maybe he's speedy, but you're in that kind of place and you end up not feeling very good on his movement, because this movement to sit on could go thunker, 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 and things are going wrong and you're struggling maybe for control and you start pulling and bumping and sweating and he gets more antsy and things go more wrong. And this would be what I call the spiral of increasing tension. And we've all been there at some point in time where we get more wrong and the horse gets more wrong, and as he gets more wrong, we get more wrong, and then you're having a pulling match and then you're frustrated, and the opposite is what I call the spiral of increasing ease. So in the spiral of increasing ease, the horse begins to get more right, and the chances are that it's actually you that starts it, so you get more right. So the back can come underneath you more and lift up, and the horse can reach into the rein more, and then you're less tempted to pull. And at that point in time, energy is flowing more, so you're less tempted to kick and shove, and you've got more right, so he gets more right. And when he gets more right, it's way more easy to sit on his movement, so you can sit better and he can go better, and you can sit better and he can go better, and you can sit better and he can sit better. And that's what I call the spiral of increasing ease. And along with that, I like the idea of what I call the seeking reflexes, because once we're starting to get into the spiral of increasing ease, what really happens is as the horse's back comes up, it's like he's seeking contact with your butt and your body here. And at the same time as that happens, he will actually fill out in his rib cage. So it's almost like somebody blew up a gym ball. Right? So his back comes up, he fills out into his rib cage. It's like someone's blown up a gym ball. And as that happens, you could say he's seeking contact with your thigh and with your calf. And then the next thing that happens is as the back comes up, the head and neck get to reach out of the wither, and he gets to seek contact with the rein and the end of the rein and the contact that you have there that hopefully allows that length of his neck to happen. So the idea of the seeking reflexes is a much more whole body concept than on the bit. And maybe I should say at this point that on the bit can happen without a bridle. I know a number of pupils I teach who ride in a bitless bridle and can have a really good effect using a bitless bridle rather than a bit. So it doesn't require a bit. Okay, now I'm wondering if I can get some of our photos or pictures up here. Do you need Peter? Okay, so we've got some pictures here of the spiral of increasing tension and the spiral of increasing ease. Okay, and you can see that horse is kind of shrunken, right? And the spiral of increasing ease. But this horse starts to reach into the rein, and he is way more what I call stuffed than the horse in the spiral of tension. Now, stuffed is a really important concept. I couldn't teach in the way I do and understand what I understand if I hadn't come up with the concept of stuffed. And actually, the next book I'm writing and a series of webinars that I hope we will do next year will actually really talk more about the physiology of stuffed. It's not just a figment of my imagination, this idea of stuffed. So if the horse is like a brand new stuffed toy horse, he is stuffed. The horse in the spiral of increasing tension was like a horse, you know, scrunched and contracted and unstuffed. So some horses do that in a hard kind of way, and some horses do it in an unstuffed, soggy, old, soft toy kind of a way. But both rider and horse can be more or less stuffed. So you may well have had the experience, maybe out hacking, where something rather exciting happened and you felt your horse go, ta-da! And actually, you will have felt his back come up, felt him fill up with stuffing and muscle tone, felt him become more like a stallion prancing in front of a mare. And if you were one of a small percentage of really together riders, you would have gone, ooh, this is good. Let's play with all this power and energy. And most riders at that point will go, help, because they're not actually matching that horse's quality of stuffedness in their own body. And that's part of what it requires to be safe up there and to really be able to work with that energy. So unstuffed and stuffed, the spiral of increasing ease, the spiral of increasing tension are really significant. How's about the strung bow? Okay. So hopefully, I think we're just coming up with a picture here that talks about the horse as a strung bow. So if you imagine his back as the wood of the bow and his belly as the string of the bow, if we shorten the string of the bow, we bring the wood of the bow into more of an arc, more of a curve. Do you have that there? Okay, that's great. So the pictures you've got one horse who's more highly trained, who's getting closer to collection, where the bow is kind of more strung and higher, and the other horse who is making a bow, but at a more novice or elementary level. But the principle is the same. And actually what we saw with Millie's pony, the smaller of the two here, is that she doesn't quite shorten her tummy enough. So when I went to do the belly lift on her, I kind of said to her, could you shorten your tummy as the string of the bow and bring your neck into more, or bring your back into more of a bow, which will bring your neck into a more of a crest? And she said to me, yeah, I don't do that. And her tummy muscles kind of went twitchy, but she didn't really shorten her tummy in the way that Demelza's horse did. And he showed us rather nicely the idea of the horse as the strung bow. Can we do the suspension bridge one? But with any luck, you're seeing here the slide of the horse like a suspension bridge. So I think this is a brilliant image. Actually, Demelza, maybe come and halt here. We could use your horse to play this on too. So stanchions of the suspension bridge are like the wither and the croup. The horse's spine is like the roadway of the bridge. Okay, and from about where you sit, one set of ligaments, like the wires on the bridge, are pulling the horse's back towards the croup, and the other set of ligaments are pulling towards the wither. So from about here, you've got withers, ligaments pulling up like the wires on the suspension bridge towards the wither, and ligaments pulling up towards the croup. And when the whole suspension bridge system really works, the ligaments in the neck pull the neck into an arch, and the ligaments that go back to the tail pull up the tail so it's carried. So this is a wonderful idea, that the stanchions of the suspension bridge. And when it goes wrong, it's as if the horse collapses his stanchions. So it would be like his shoulders collapse back towards the middle of his back, his croup collapses back towards the middle of his back, the ligaments go slack, and the bridge in between hangs down, and the horse's back is hollow, and the rider literally feels like she's sitting down a hammock. And once you're sitting that hammock, of course, it's really hard for you to go right. It will bring out all your worst patterns. You'll round your back as you fall back in the hammock. Your back will slide backwards as you fall back into the hammock. Your body will respond according to its default, and you will find it way harder to do the corrections that your teacher might have been telling you to do. So this tells us more about the general catch-22, which is until the rider sits right, the horse can't go right. But until the horse goes right, the rider can't sit right. If he makes that suspension bridge hollow, you should probably come back onto me if you're not. Okay, that's great. If the horse makes that suspension bridge hollow, it is so hard to get yourself organized. And this whole catch-22 is the bottom line in riding. It is inescapable. Until you sit right, he can't go right. Until he goes right, you can't sit right. This series is coming in from the end of getting you to sit right so he can go right. But when you're starting on a very disorganized horse, that's hard. So let's say if your horse is a -5, you have to be a +6 to get the pair of you into a positive. If your horse is a -10, you have to be a +11, right? If your horse is already the right side of 0, then you're up and running. And depending on who rides your horse, he may descend into the negative or suddenly be in the positive, which starts to show you just how much influence each individual rider has according to her body organization and her resilience. Thank you. So I think at this point, actually, what we need to do is come to some of the baselines that we want you to be finding to begin to get us started here. Can we bring up the 4 quadrants one that we just did? This whole thing really depends on being able to diagnose your starting point. And it's actually probably easier to diagnose your horse's starting point than it is to diagnose yours. So what we've got here is a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. So on our horizontal axis, we have the fast horse and the slow horse. So the goey one and the lazy one. And on the vertical axis, we have the above the bit really hollow horse and the tends to put his nose too close to his chest overbent horse. And the question is, which quadrant does your horse belong in? Do you have a speedy and hollow horse or a lazy and hollow horse? Do you have a speedy and tends to come behind the vertical horse, in which case you might find him charging off with you and there are loops in the reins and you have no brakes and no steering? Or he may be doing this in a way that keeps him heavy in the hand. And our 4th quadrant is where you have a lazy and nose on his chest horse. So which do you think your horse is? And according to what your horse is, the challenges that face you will be somewhat different. And there's little bits of writing on the chart here, which I can't see at the moment as I'm speaking to you, that kind of just say a little bit about what the challenge is to each rider in each quadrant. And as we go on, we'll be saying more about the challenge to each rider in each quadrant. So meanwhile, what I want you to do is to have a sense of where is your horse on those quadrants. And that might mean get a friend to take a little bit of video. And along with that, seeing that video is going to help you diagnose yourself. Okay, so actually, Demelza, maybe come and halt here again. And I'm going to put you into some contortions, if I may. Okay, so they can upload, yes. So if you do a little video of yourself and you upload it to us, and Peter may have to give you directions for that at the end, then we can give you a very quick sense of where your starting point is. We're not going to send you back an essay, I'm afraid, but we can give you a sense of where your starting point is. And, you know, you've got to know where you're beginning your journey, or goodness only knows where you'll end up. Go really hollow and long. Okay, so some of you will be in this tendency. And what tends to happen, although we didn't see this so much with Demelza's horse, is when the rider elongates her front, she tends to give permission to the horse to elongate his tummy, his chest, his neck, and to lift his chin like this. More often than not, the hollow-backed rider is seen riding the hollow-backed horse. And they're both doing exactly the same thing. And if you're a hollow-backed rider, you might be pretty good and then discover as your horse suddenly hollows that your own body goes zoop and your bum disappears backwards into that hollow made by his suspension bridge that's just gone soggy. So this person needs to bring their waistband back. That's it. Okay. Now, actually go wrong again. So, and we'll do these several times, right? So go waistband back. That's it. And as she goes waistband back, what we're aiming to do is to make her vertical and a box where the length of her front matches the length of her back. Now you need to go collarbone a little. That's it. She's got it now. So if we put a string or an elastic from Demelza's collarbone to her pubic bone, it would be pretty much the same length as from the nape of her neck to her coccyx, right? And go wrong again. Okay, and I'm sorry, this is a little personal, but Demelza is such a good sport. You are such a good sport. I'm sure she'll play the game with me here. Sorry to be personal about your bosom, but where does your bosom aim? Yeah, so kind of to the rafters, parallel to his neck, probably up to the rafters. Okay, let's make that fix again. All right, that's good. That's enough. And where does your bosom aim now? Yeah, and it's no guarantee. We cannot give you a hard and fast place where your bosom will aim when it's right, because it depends on how tall you are, how big your horse is, and obviously if he was moving and his head carriage was different, her bosom would point to a different place. But for most folks, the pole is the highest place their bosom should aim. And sometimes it's where the brow bone meets the headpiece, and sometimes it's the horse's eyes, and sometimes it's even further down his nose. So if your bosom aims parallel to his neck and up towards the rafters or the treetops, you are undoubtedly hollow. Okay, hollow again. If you had little flashlights on your seat bones, where would they point? Back. So they'd actually take a line about like that and point back. So we could also make these fixes by saying, could you rearrange yourself to where your seat bones point down? That's it. That's a good fix. Okay. And she becomes box-like again. Go wrong again. Another of my favorite fixes for this would be if your pelvis was like a bowl with water in it. And in this configuration, would the water stay in the bowl or would it spill out of the bowl? Would spill out the front. So can you arrange yourself so the water would stay in the bowl? And to do that, Demelza gets to lift her pubic bone, bring her waistband back, bring her chest down. So what she is now is both neutral in terms of here where her mid-back is a hinge. So she's neutral there and she's vertical. Okay, so let's look at it this way. You've got two hinges. The hip joint is one hinge. It's not where my fingers are. My fingers are on a bony knobble at the top of my thigh. And my thigh bone then turns in and my hip joints are inside me at about this level. Okay, so these are not your hip joints. These are not your hip joints. Your hip joints you can't feel. And if you can feel them because you have pain in them, you have my sympathy. But short of needing a hip replacement, you won't be feeling your hip joints. They're deep inside you. And your hip joints determine whether you lean forward or lean back. And the middle of your back can be a hinge, and that's going to determine if you hollow your back or you round your back. Okay? And Demelza apparently was a gymnast, yeah, and is pretty supple and can go hollow really well. She can do that really, really, really well. She trained it for years, yeah? So let's make the fix once again. Okay, that's brilliant. So there's the upper body fix, and really make your legs long. Okay, so here, even though we haven't changed the length of her stirrups, she's thinking, stretch your leg down, push your heel down, and her thigh bone would follow the seam line in her breeches here and would be more vertical than 45 degrees, okay? And what you're going to do is instead of thinking, stretch your leg down, push your heel down, think of your thigh and your calf making an arrowhead shape. Like this. So that means the knee is the point of the arrow, and the change of thinking of making that shape, go on, that shape, right, to making this shape is a really big change. And you will need to get that photo or that video to know if your stirrups are the right length, and to know within this if you're getting into a shoulder hip heel vertical line, which is what's happening here. So the knobble in your ankle We want to come under the knobble. Actually, you may need to go a little more forward. Under the knobble here. That's the bony knobble at the top of my thigh here. So you can probably feel this on you. It's on your panty line, just on the outside of your thigh, that we want lined up with her shoulder seam. So that would define a martial arts posture, right? And at this point, you can start to be strong and functional and responsible for your body weight. All right, let's let you move on. And since Millie's going through a round-backed phase, we'll bring you here to do round-backed. So Millie's reappeared on another little horse called Lottie that I haven't met before. Sorry? She hasn't been ridden for a couple of weeks. Oh, this is the right time to get on her then, isn't it? All right, little Lottie. Good girl. You're very cute, aren't you? Hello. Aren't you sweet? Oh, darling, you're okay. All right, so can you do round backed? Go on, slump a bit more. Okay, so that's it. So can you stand in that place? And stick your feet forward a bit more. Okay, so there's a lot of people as well whose starting point is here. So if we took a string or an elastic from her collarbone to her pubic bone and from the nape of her neck to her coccyx, what's the longer one and what's the shorter one? So it's pretty obvious here. The front one is short, the back one is long. So you can see she would tend to, as she does this, to have a lot of weight on her bum. And most riders who do this have their feet forward. You'll see this a lot in folks that go hunting. A lot of event riders tend to do this. And this will tend to squash the horse in the middle. Okay, so one child reorganizing herself. So here we get, well, actually, you've probably gone a little bit hollow and should be about there. So I think now we've got her a pretty good vertical box. So verticalness, remember, is about the hinge at the hip joint. And boxedness is about the hinge in the lumbar spine, that we don't want to go this way. We don't want to go that way. We want to be just neutral. And the big question that you get to ask yourself is, if we took the horse out from under the rider by magic, how would the rider land on the riding arena? And we want the answer to be in a martial arts posture on her feet like this. Once that happens, then you begin to get in the place where you can help your horse rather than hinder him. Okay, so Millie, you can walk on and you can trot about a little bit, and we'll finish maybe by just looking at you a little bit and trot and seeing what the story is with her. So what I'm really trying to do here is get where we're clear about homework. You've got those quadrants. Where does your horse belong? Is he the hollow and speedy type, the hollow and lazy type? Is he the goes too deep, overbends, whizzy type, or the goes too deep, overbends, lazy type? He may be none of those. Because if you're one of the riders who's been riding with a lot of your percentage of your attention on his head position, he may be one of those whose neck's gone a bit, well, his nose is vertical, and he may be here. And if he's there, that's very often a man-made posture. I mean, some horses, I think, do pop out of the womb with their necks a bit, but we very easily contribute to that, especially if we have a notion of on the bit that's really about the horse's head carriage and not this whole body idea of seeking contact with the back, seeking contact with the thighs, seeking contact with the rein, getting more stuffing, getting more filled out, getting more energy. So can you diagnose where your horse is? Can you diagnose where you are? You will almost certainly be either a round-backed rider or a hollow-backed rider. If you look at your photograph and discover you're in neutral, congratulations. You're one of the very few. I mean, it's frightening how few people have this place as home. Hardly anybody has this as home. And as a martial arts posture, this is ultimately functional. And if we thought of riding and the rider-horse interaction as a martial arts type interaction, I think we would do a whole load better in our ways of thinking and being. So we're thinking about, are you vertical? Are you neutral? Is your stirrup length putting your thigh at 45 degrees? Do you ride longer than that? Do you ride shorter than that? Can you think of your thigh and your calf as the arrowhead shape like this, which has the knee as the point of the arrow? And in order to not think, stretch your leg down, push your heels down, you need to be sitting where there's just a little bit of weight in your foot. So I want to do another little experiment with you here. I'm hoping you're sitting in a fairly hard chair, or that you can get yourself into a hard chair, and that you can sit in neutral and uncross your legs, have your feet flat on the floor. So Peter, if you could get me the stool, I could do this. So here we go. I'm going to sit myself on a hard chair in neutral, feet flat on the floor. And I want you to push down in one foot. So I'm doing this now, and you can probably see I chose that foot. And what's happened to this side of your bum and mine? So I think you will discover that when you push down, what you do is you lift up. And this is Newton's third law of motion. It says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you push down, you will create a straightening in your joints that sends you up. This is not what you want when you're riding. If you just rest your feet on the floor, and when we're walking, we just rest when we're standing. We don't press, we rest. If you rest your feet on the floor, then your seat bones can point down, you can be in neutral, you can be organized. As soon as you press, you add another dynamic. And just for interest's sake, how's about you press down in the other foot? So what happens then? You press down, your bum comes up on the other side, but I think you might find that this position that you did second doesn't feel quite so much like home as the other. And that will tell you which stirrup you would tend to push down in more. So I would defy gravity with the left side of my body, push more into this stirrup, lift this seat bone more, elongate this side more. It feels rather alien if I push down into that side. My body wouldn't do that as a default. And you've now learned just a little bit about your asymmetry, which we will maybe say a little bit more about as this unfolds, but it's not our main premise here. So your stirrups, so your thigh bone can be at 45 degrees. The foot just rests, doesn't press, and we're looking to put the knobble in your ankle here, under the knobble at the top of your thigh here, under your shoulder seam. And let's just do a little exercise to find the thigh knobble. So stand up, put your hands on the bony, hopefully you can feel this on your panty line, but if you can't feel it, lean one way and it will get clearer to you in the direction you leant to. So you can feel that really bony knobble there. And lean the other way and find the other one. So these bony knobbles are known as your greater trochanters, and they are an important part of your structure that I'm pretty sure we will talk about at other times. So let's actually, Millie, get you to come on a circle here. And we're just going to finish up by looking a little bit at this baby horse and Millie. So horse looks very cute and a little bit overawed. She looks to me like she's on the go-y side rather than the lazy side. So I think she would have more go than woe. Okay, and although her nose doesn't come rather horizontal, she does a fair bit of pushback that would make her neck look rather short. And I'm going to ask Millie, Millie, if you think of the shape of the surface you're sitting on, are you sitting down in a hollow, like being in a hammock? Are you sitting on a flat surface, or are you sitting on a mound? Okay, so you're in a hollow, but it feels quite like that rather than a longer one. Yes, so Millie's down in a hollow. So that's going to make it harder for her not to do her default, which right now looks as though she'd be round-backed, but that was a good fix, Millie. And so she could slump down into that hollow very easily. Okay. She's got a good 45-degree thigh, and she just knew what I was going to say next and put her foot back underneath her a little bit, because the setup when the horse puts you down the hollow will, if you're this kind of rider, tend to make your feet go forward. Okay, and we can see, looking at this pony, that she's adorable and very cute, and I think will look wonderful with more work, but she's got quite a tum. Her tummy muscles haven't become the strung part of the strung bow, right? So the top of hers fairly hollow, while the bottom of hers going blip with her tummy. Okay, so Millie, while you're there, you be doing your best to sit light, keep kneeling, keep heel back and up. Good for you. And Millie's doing a good job in not pulling back. And yeah, so we're going to take trot. So you will need to take the rein up a little bit more here. So let's just see what happens when we go to trot. And that's better. Okay. So there's a big question over whether Millie's in control of the speed of the legs or the horse is in control of the speed of the legs. And Millie, if you can think of a pause in the saddle as you land, that would help to slow the legs. So there's a big deal here over getting in control of the speed of the legs, and the horse's pushback gets bigger. So her ears are getting closer towards Millie's chin. And what we'll be learning next week, or next month rather, is about Millie beginning to make a push forward that can push the horse's head and neck away from her. But meanwhile, she looks like if the horse had a motto, her motto would be, have pushback, will travel. Right? Yeah. And meanwhile, Millie, you've got to see if you can keep landing up the slope of the saddle towards the pommel, trying to stop yourself landing heavily down that big hollow. And you might have to think, as if you're going to walk, don't walk. As if you're going to walk. Slower. As if you're going to walk, don't walk. And see if you can do that staying rising with a big thrust. And this mare takes some really strange steps every now and again, and I don't quite know what that's about. Okay. All right, so steady. You keep rising. Okay. That's it. And this is about a speed. Keep thinking of as if you're going to walk, don't walk. But with a big thrust. Quietly. Yeah, so that kick wasn't a good idea. All right, as if you're going to walk. So you're now paying the price of having kicked her at the wrong time. As if you're going to walk. Foot light, weight in your thigh. Okay, all right, and let's actually walk. So this is going to be an interesting Project Pony over the next 5 months of these webinars. And any of you who have a horse of this type are going to feel like you've lucked out, I think, because you're going to see how we get on with this and how much difference we can make over time. So this is a pushing back speedy horse with a round-backed, falls back down the man trap, bum-heavy rider. Who did a pretty good job in not ending up water skiing, because if it had gone really badly wrong, we would have had Millie's feet here and our hands here and our rounding back going, whoa, as the pony got faster and faster. So at least we stayed out of that one. So at this point in time, I think we get to open this up to you and your questions. So my computer person is just going to be collating this here. Meanwhile, I'm going to say a big thank you for Demelza and a big thank you too for Millie. And okay, what is weight in your thigh? So if you're going to not press in your feet, your weight has to go somewhere else. And weight in your thigh is the notion that the sitting surface is really made up of pretty much the whole fuzzy patch on my britches. So if I'm in a martial arts posture, my sitting involves this as the sitting surface. So this is a contradiction to what many people are told, because relax your thigh, take your knee off the saddle is in vogue at the moment. And you will not see any elite riders who do this. This is one of the big dislocations between expertise and explanation, of which there are many in the horse world. So whenever you look at an elite rider, the thigh will be on the saddle, and the thigh is weight bearing. It's like if this shape is the horse, this is the rider, weight bearing on top. Not keeping all the weight in her butt, but spreading weight through this entire surface, which means, of course, that the thigh has to be against the saddle. Right? So as a rider, you may need to take weight out of your feet and think instead of that weight being taken by your thigh. And if you're a bum-heavy rider, which would tend to imply you're round-backed rather than hollow-backed, you need to take weight out of your butt as well to put weight into your thigh. So that whole sitting surface that spreads forward over the horse's ribcage is key. So the question is, somebody has been told to put more weight into her inside stirrup on circles. Is this correct? I would say no. But you don't want less weight in your inside stirrup than your outside one. I would say you want to go for 50-50 weight in your feet and 50-50 weight in your seat bones, and that may be much easier said than done. And the most important starting point, as ever, is to diagnose yourself. You're going, how much weight do I have on each seat bone? 50-50 would be even. Start in walk on a straight line, then walk on a circle in both directions, then log each one as to what weight would be on each seat bone. Then take trot and circle in each direction and find out what weight would be on each seat bone. And you're looking for 50-50. And I think I can't explain the reasoning of that anymore right now, but more weight in the inside stirrup or the inside seat bone is dodgy, because you start pushing down and making a push up and things can go wrong. And yes, there's also the basics. What was it called? Master Dressage, the Basics. You know, that webinar series is available to you, and that talks a whole load. Oh, they've got the free book. Okay, so you've got a PDF, yes, that you can access that goes through some of these points, albeit briefly. But that will give you some of the do's and don'ts of the baselines. Okay, so somebody asking, if you ride in a Western saddle, are you following the same tips? I'm going to say yes. My experience is limited with the Western saddles, and many of them do not really help the rider get into this posture. Many of them, I think, are designed so that your butt sits against the cantle, and where the stirrups are attached to the saddle is further forward, so your butt is then against the cantle with your feet further forward, and you're encouraged into more of an armchair way of sitting. So I hope you can get your saddle sorted in a way that you can do shoulder, hip, heel, and a 45-degree thigh. And of course, you don't have as much support under your thigh bone and thigh as you would do in an English saddle. And that is going to make it a little harder for you, I think, in some respects. But if your saddle's, you know, built to what I would consider a pretty good spec, then it's doable. And I understand with the advent of Western dressage that there are some more rider-friendly Western saddles appearing, or let's say more biomechanics-friendly saddles appearing. How do you achieve weight in your side without crotch sitting? Very easily. But your question really could be considered in terms of your starting point, because if you're the way bodies work, if your weight is on the back of your bum, your thighs will tend to roll out. When your thighs roll in, it naturally brings your weight a bit further forward on your underneath. And you really want your weight to be taken on your pelvic floor ahead of your seat bones and not the fleshy part of your bum behind your seat bones. Now, this brings up a very good point that I should have made in the webinar. Those of you who are going to go away from this and dutifully attempt to find shoulder, hip, heel, a martial arts posture, your front matching your back, you will need to be prepared for the fact that when you make these changes, it will feel bigger than it looks. This is the same phenomenon as you lose a filling, you get an ulcer in your mouth, it feels to your tongue like a huge, great yawning chasm. If you sort of go, ooh, and look in the mirror, it's tiny. It feels huge when it looks tiny in your mouth and also in your whole body. So if you started here and I got you sat to where your weight is on your pelvic floor ahead of your seat bones, you might say to me, I'm sitting on my crotch. This can't be right, because it feels so much bigger than it looks. And it is very easy to get your seat bones pointing straight down and your thigh weight bearing in the right way. And if your front matches your back, this length matches this length, and your seat bones point down, and you might want to sit on your hands, right, on the saddle, feel your seat bones with your hands and go round your back. Where do your seat bones point? Come to neutral, hollow your back. Where do your seat bones point? And once you've found down with your seat bones and equal and vertical here, that's the part of your underneath you need to be on. And if you then call that, I'm sitting on my crotch, it's because it feels so much bigger than it looks. So that's the best way I can answer your question, given that I don't know your starting point. Okay. Your thigh goes from here to here. So the question was, what's the difference between weight in your thigh and not gripping with your knees or gripping with your knees? So your thigh goes from here to here, right? Obviously, the horse is much narrower up here, and so are you. And the horse is much wider down here, and so are you. You're looking for an even contact in this whole length. And if anything, you're allowed to be a bit firmer here than there. But you're not allowed to be firmer here than there. So we often use the idea, and if you put your fingers inside your knee, I think you'll find pretty clearly there's a bony knobble. My thumbs are on that knobble right now. If you imagine there's a bar that passes through the horse's tummy and your knees are hooked on this bar. If you're somebody who has flopped your knees off the saddle, you need to think of the bar holding your knee where it's on the saddle. If you're somebody who would do that too much, you need to think of the bar holding your knees apart. But you're looking for your knees staying there. It's not doing this and it's not doing that. They just sit there on the bar. Okay? And they must have a stronger contact than you have up here. And your aim is to make an A-frame that fits your horse's body. So he is contained between your thighs in that A-frame. And if you get too strong with your knees, you are not narrow enough here, and you need to get this part of your thigh more on the saddle. And that will be something we'll talk more about in the next webinar. Right? But you're aiming for an even contact down here. I think this should probably be our finish point. Okay, so the question is, without fiddling, how much should we be feeling with the hands? How much contact should there be in the reins? I haven't talked about that at all. And I'm not going to go into this in a big way. You don't want reins that are loopy. But if we took a 0 to 10 scale, where 0 was loopy reins and 10 was the horse pulling your arms out, you probably want to hang out around 3. Okay, and sometimes the horse needs to be a little bit more in the rein than that, and you might go up the 5, 6 end of the scale, but probably about 3 on that scale. So you know he's there, and he knows you're there, and you can feel the bit in the corners of his mouth, and he can feel you, and you can feel him. And thinking of holding hands with a child is a good way to think of it, because you wouldn't yank and pull and, you know, do all those kind of things, but you would keep hold of the child's hand. You wouldn't just let the child go and run off across the street. So holding hands with the child, or let's say a 3 on that 0 to 10 scale, would probably be a good way to think of it for right now. And obviously this is something we will talk a whole load more about. Okay, so I think that wraps us up for today. So thanks to you again, girls, and to all the tech crew who made this possible, and for all of you here watching. You have the PDF. The book Ride with Your Mind Essentials is a great backup to this. If you have money to spend on some DVDs, the Naked Truth of Riding DVD set, I think is super. And it has some wonderful footage of Heather Blitz riding, and she is, I think, the most biomechanically correct rider in the world. She is the best living example of the biomechanics I teach. And she rides several of the horses on those DVDs, and you see them change between their normal owner and her getting on, with us talking about how those changes are happening. So we will see you next time. Yes, let me also mention, if you go to my website, merry-wanlist.com, and you find coaching and you scroll down on the left-hand side, after you've gone past the information about courses at my riding centre in the Cotswolds here in England, you will find information about coaches who are accredited with me in the UK, in the US, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, France, Germany, Poland, Norway. I think that's probably it. I'm not quite sure. But you can find one of those coaches and see if you can get yourself some real live hands-on tuition, because that is what works best of all. But in the meanwhile, we'll see you in cyberspace again in another month. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.